Steve the Amateur Historian.
Hey guys, Steve the Amateur Historian here, and I don't know why I just started thinking about this, but back when I was a teenager, late teens, I started doing this movie series with my VHS camera, shooting feature-length movies that were an hour and a half, 2 hours long. I did like 6 of them, I think, some of which I recorded over, some of which the videotapes are wherever the hell my dad put them when I left home because I forgot to bring them with me. I have like DVD copies of like 2 of them. I think one of them is like recut where I combined like 2 movies I did into one or some weird shit. And so let me write it down for you, because this is the period of my life. This is high school. So this is my isolation period. I have barely any friends. The friends I do have at school, I never talk to outside of school because I'm too scared to ask to even hang out with people. So life is very much, you know, especially when it wasn't track season, life was very much go to school, go home and be alone, go to school, go home and be alone. That was life when I was growing up. So, my hair's out of control. So I found things to keep me entertained. You know, I'm a writer and a video maker and a filmmaker now, but I always was looking for artistic outlets. When I was younger, I wanted to be a writer, and I just did film because it was like another creative release. Anything that was artistically creative, I wanted to dive into. And I hated working with people, you know, obviously because I was antisocial. So of course, any of these things I did, I never asked a friend if they wanted to be involved. It was all me, because then it didn't have to be socially awkward. And so I would do all these random videos, and I would be the only one in them. If I needed a female character, I'd flop a pair of running shorts on my head to simulate long hair, and I'd talk like this, and there you go, you got a female character who looks just like me. I'm surprised they didn't do more videos. I did one, but I'm surprised they didn't do more videos where it was just me and a twin. But that was, actually no, that was the concept of this video series too. So essentially, there was this guy I went to middle school with named Rusty, who had, he talked like this. What are you looking at, Steve? You know, he had this just like hoarse, kind of high-pitched, very redneck voice. And he would just always be just like, he was always joking. I always knew he was joking. He wouldn't pick on me, but he would just like, just bug me and be like, hey, Steve. I remember first year of high school, he sat behind me in, algebra. And he would like poke my seat or hit my seat, and I'd turn and look at him, and he'd be like, what are you looking at, Steve? And he would do that just periodically. He wouldn't do it like ceaselessly, but he would do it periodically. And every time every time he'd do that, I'd obviously look back, because I'd be like, you're bugging me. And he would get more and more, be like, Steve, stop looking at me. Like I was looking at him for no reason. And when he signed my yearbook, freshman year yearbook, I don't know how well this will show up. A personal touch. School year 2000-2001, because I'm old as shit. Here we go. I don't know how well it's going to show up, but well, time passes and we grow closer together. Steve, I just hate it when you look at me constantly in math class. Have a great summer. Peace, Rusty. There's your evidence right there. He literally, that was his reference. He started it like he was going to write a piece of poetry for me, but instead it was just, Steve, stop fucking looking at me. And he was just such an odd character in a fun way. But he was kind of a guy, like he annoyed me more in middle school, but not so much in high school. And so he had no idea I did this. Around end of middle school, start of high school, this is 2000, 2001, that same period, I did a film, and it was called Joe. I called the character Joe, and it was my parody of this Rusty guy. And I called the first movie I did Joe's Juicy Journey, which just sounds like a porno flick, but when I was 15 or however old I was when this happened, I didn't know porn titles from anything. And I remember I recorded over a movie. It was a VHS cassette of a movie that we had that my parents never watched, And you know, when you pull on the back, maybe you don't know this because this is VHS history, but on the side of the tape where the label would go, there was a little black tab, and when you, I don't know how this technology worked, but if the tab was left in there, you could record on the tape, and if the tab was broken off, you couldn't, it made it copyright protected. However, all you had to do was take a piece of tape and put it over the opening where the tab was, and you could record over again. So if the tab was broken off, it didn't mean you couldn't record. So there was a plethora of videotapes where you'd find the tape on them because I recorded over something and then never took the tape off. And so I filmed this video, and it was this guy that I was playing, who was Steve, because he would always be like, Steve, Steve, hey Steve. So Steve, I played myself essentially, but I was like an asshole version of myself, which I was kind of an asshole anyway, so I mean, it wasn't really that much of a parody. And then I would also play Joe, who was this rusty guy. So of course we look exactly like, I don't remember if I alluded to the idea that we were twins. I think it was more that it was just a coincidence that we were two people that looked the same. And it was just goofy. I don't even really remember it that well. I mean, this is almost 20 years ago. And I just remember it leading up to, I don't even remember. All I remember is before this, when my cousin came to visit, we used this really old VHS camera, and we recorded these parodies of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, because that was when the show was big and it was new and Regis Philbin was still on there. And we recorded one where my cousin was playing Regis, and I just had to come on and pretend to be a person. So I wanted to be a character, so I that was the first time I ever did this rusty guy, and I called myself Bendover original. And the whole thing, I'm just like, "Aah!" But I won the $1 million. So I integrated that thing that I shot with my cousin into the film, and it made no friggin' sense. There was no real allusion to it. It had nothing to do with the plot. I was just like, I have to interject this somehow. And then stuff happens at the end. I really don't remember what the resolution was. But that was just the start, because then, you know, I got that done, and I was like, that was kind of fun in a loner, loser sort of way. Then I was like, I want to make another one. So I made another movie, and it was called Cup of Joe, where, like, Steve and Joe, I think, have, you know, made it through their first journey together, and they, like, establish a TV show together, because I did this show with my friend next door, where we would just video ourselves just talking about stuff and being goofy, and it was called, first we called it the Home Dicks Show, because my dad, this is a lot of random shit I'm telling you, my dad, it was like a little back massager thing, this little thing you'd set on the back of your seat, and it would vibrate and massage your back. My dad had back and neck pain from an old car accident, and other stuff. And the brand name was Homedics, but if you read it, if you split it down the middle, it said Home, and then it was D-I-C-S, Dicks. So I would always call that thing, I'd be like, oh, Dad's pulling out his home dick. And then we changed the show to, it was called The Homies Unmentionables Show, which I did a little bit with my friend, and then I just did a whole bunch of stuff by myself when I'd get bored, which was pretty much any moment I wasn't in school. I was just home bored, looking for stuff to do. And so I kind of transitioned it to where in this Cup of Joe movie, like, we were doing that show together, because I had all these episodes I shot of that where it was just me, so, and then it kind of just builds to like, oh, Joe, all this, and I remember I had a bit where, like, Joe's hand gets glued to, like, the counter in a kitchen, like this weird, absurd shenanigans type stuff. I remember one cut, like, you hear me go like, "Aah!" and you hear my dad in the background starting to walk into the room like, what the hell is going on? It cut. And that wasn't it. I did, there was another one I did, I can't remember the name. I did one called Joe, Leo, and Joanna, which was where essentially it started with Steve and Joe. And then Joe ends up getting separated from Steve, and I had all this video I shot with my cousin, and in it, we jokingly, I was kind of doing that voice, so it would pass, that Joe voice, and randomly there was something where we decided his name was Leo, and I had this little stuffed puppet that I called Joanna. Yeah, weird teenager, and I named her Joanna after the lizard from Rescuers Down Under. That's where we got the name Joanna. And so it was like me, the last half of the film is Joe. Steve's not even involved. It's just Joe, my cousin Leo, and then just Joanna the puppet with us, and we're just like running from the cops, and we're drunk as shit or whatever, just total utter chaos. And it ends with us being like, oh, we're running out of gas, well, I guess we're gonna die, and then the implication is we drive off a cliff and kill ourselves. And that's how that movie ended. I did one called Indiana Joe, where it was just random Indiana Jones parodies peppered into a whatever story, and I taped over it, and now I wish to God I hadn't. That has to be so funny to watch. And there was one more that I think I started and never quite finished. There was like 5 of these fuckers. I just kept making them because I couldn't come up with anything new to do. You know, I didn't have any friends. It's ridiculous. And it was all based on this goofy rednecky guy named Rusty that I went to high school with. What are you gonna do? Might as well make stupid movies, right? Catch you next time.